After the end of the 2020 NBA Finals in October, I realized a few things almost immediately. I realized that we really just played out an entire postseason in a bubble and had 0 cases in 2 months, which I feel like that isn't really getting the credit that it deserves. So shout out to Adam Silver, and shout out to all the workers in the bubble that made that possible. Like, round of applause, please. Thank you. But we also realized that it's just not the same. Because, yeah, we had simulated crowd noise, but I mean, there's a pretty clear difference when you watch highlights from the bubble and highlights from a normal playoffs. Like, it's really not even close at all.
He was 6 of 9.
Oh my
Look
goodness.
At this shot by Lillard.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
That was from the NBA logo.
Oh my goodness, what a shot.
You gotta be kidding me. He's now 1 of 7 from behind the arc. Lillard hits it in response. Oh! Damian Lillard on fire!
So yeah, you see my point. And so that was really a downside to the end of that season. But we'll be getting those fans back more than likely. Even at a reduced crowd size, it would probably be more vibrant than that bubble. But that's just one reason for the title of the video. Of course, we will also have some of the best players in the league coming back from injury, and we'll be able to see them play again. Guys like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, John Wall, Klay Thompson, and the list goes on. But this will also lead to what will inevitably be probably the most competitive season in NBA history. So let's talk about it. We're going to be talking about some of those players coming back, what that could mean for the rest of the league, some teams that may end up surprising people, and that will lead us to the conclusion that the 2021 NBA season will likely be the greatest season in NBA history. But before we begin, if you're new here, I'm Double D. I'm a huge basketball fan and I make NBA videos here on YouTube. So if you're also an NBA fan, or just a basketball fan in general, feel free to hit the sub button and click the bell to be notified when I upload more videos just like this one. Also, according to YouTube analytics, around 84% of you guys that watch my videos are still not subscribed, so I'd really appreciate that. Alright, let's get into the video. So I realized that this video is being made a little bit early, mainly because we haven't had the draft or free agency yet, but I also feel that those things aren't really going to change what I have to say here, because while there are a lot of decent free agents and trade possibilities this offseason, the main one to look at would probably be Bradley Beal, and I don't see him requesting a trade now that John Wall is coming back. But I could be wrong, and we'd talk about that if the time came. But for now, let's just talk about what we could be looking at as the NBA stands today. So first and foremost, as you guys might expect, the Golden State Warriors. Because they are going to be back in the mix of contending teams, and depending on how the season plays out, they could look to make a deep playoff push or even have finals expectations. Because on top of both Steph Curry and Klay Thompson being back and healthy, they also have Kevon Looney coming back, they have guys that now know how to play, Jordan Poole knows how to shoot now, and I mean they have Alen Smailagic. So yeah, let's look out for them. Also, the Nets will obviously have both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant back next season, which will be interesting to see how Kevin Durant responds to his Achilles tear, because I mean, well, it's an Achilles tear. There's a chance that he could never be the same, or there's also that possibility of him being close to the same player because of his playstyle, which isn't really dependent on athleticism. So I think he'll be great even if he comes back at, say, 70% of what he was. That's still better than like 90% of the league. So I have no worries about him. Kyrie has had his share of injury problems in the last few seasons, so I'm not too sure about him. But given that he won't need to handle as much of the offensive load once KD is back, I'd say his chance of injuring himself isn't as likely. Given that the Nets were still a playoff team without Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving playing just 20 games, that's going to be a lot of responsibility lifted off his shoulders, which, I mean, they were still a 7th seed without those two guys. So it should be interesting to see how that unfolds, especially with their new coach in Steve Nash. So those are the big and obvious changes to next season that we didn't see this season, but one thing that we need to consider that I don't think has ever happened before, I believe that you can look at any team in the Western Conference except maybe the Kings, and have a realistic expectation for them to make the playoffs next season. Yes, even Minnesota and Phoenix. because we saw what Phoenix was able to do in the bubble, and part of the reason they were even struggling in the regular season was because they didn't have DeAndre Ayton for half the season due to his suspension. And so given that they went undefeated in the bubble and went from 13th seed to realistic chance to make the playoffs, had Portland lost just one more game, I don't think it's that far-fetched. Which, I feel like this is a good time to talk about something that I've been meaning to talk about, and that is parity. Because no matter how long you've been following the NBA, you've probably heard someone say, oh, the league has parity again. This is something people started saying especially when Kevin Durant left the Warriors. If you're unfamiliar with the term parity, it essentially means even playing field, which I have to say, when exactly did the NBA have this? Because every season in the NBA, we have around 3 to 4 realistic championship contending teams, which this was true even during the Kevin Durant era. It was mainly the Warriors, the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Rockets. Those were really the realistic championship contending teams. Before that, we had LeBron in Miami, which LeBron fans swear was not the same, and I'll admit, the teams were different, but the expectations were similar. The Heat were expected to keep retooling around the Big Three and win as many championships as physically possible, and that's why the 2011 Finals is such a huge stand on LeBron's career and severely hurts his case for being the GOAT, because they were thought to be superior to every other team. Before that, you had the Lakers, the Spurs, the Magic, the Cavs, and the Celtics, and really you can go as far back as you want. You will only find about 3 to 5 teams that were realistically in those types of conversations. There have been 74 championships in NBA history. Out of those 74 rings, 34 of them belong to the Lakers and the Celtics. 6 belong to Golden State, 6 belong to Chicago, and 5 belong to the Spurs. And look at this list. Believe it or not, these are all the teams in NBA history that have won more than 3 rings. Only 10 teams in NBA history have won more than 1. So if you're counting, this is 51 out of the 74 rings that belong to 5 teams in the NBA. 5 NBA teams have 68% of the championships. 2 teams have 46% of the rings. The Lakers and Celtics have almost half of all the rings. So that's just a reason why I believe that parity has never existed in the NBA. Because even this season, there aren't too many teams that you can point to and say, yeah, they have a chance. You have the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets, the Celtics, the Bucks, the Raptors, the Warriors maybe, the Heat maybe, and that's really it. But I feel like this can be its own entire video, so I'm just gonna leave it here. So we have those Western Conference teams, but we also have the Eastern Conference, which I don't really expect too much to change apart from Washington. Again, if Bradley Beal decides to stay, I can see them being a solid playoff team like they were a few years ago. Other than that, there really isn't that much going on that would cause major changes apart from Atlanta improving. But this is just something that has to wait until we see how this offseason unfolds. But either way, this is going to be the greatest season in NBA history, I think. Because while I said there aren't that many teams with title hopes, there are a lot more teams that you could say would be solid playoff teams at the least. And as we saw this playoffs, anything can happen. And yes, I am still aware that I was wrong about the Clippers. But that's what we're looking at going into next season. And all of this is what will eventually lead us to the Warriors vs Nets finals matchup.
Curry step backs with a 3. Good!
Oh my goodness.
Steph Curry.
Curry. Oh! Count it and a foul! Curry runs off. Curry again for 3. Bang!
There it is. Redemption for Golden State. One of the great playoff runs of all time is complete.
No, but shout out to my man Antonine for putting that together. You guys can follow him on Twitter here. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this short little video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next one.